Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source of superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I am your host, Adam Portrais, and I'm joined as always by Sean Keenan.
Heidi likes that Doctor Strange fella.
He handsome. And of course, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, but you can call me Mr. Doctor.
Mr. Doctor? I'm not even going to touch that one. Well, welcome yet again. Now, first of all, I want to say my guess is because it always happens with the new superhero movies coming out and everything. We always kind of get a little bit of a bump in downloads because everybody's like, "Oh, I gotta hear about the new stuff and everything."
You mean people are more interested in Doctor Strange than Crow 2: City of Angles?
City of Angles. You know, like I'll take full responsibility for everything. So,
yeah, it's still a little bit better than that Hero Mauve podcast thing I saw on YouTube.
Here's the thing, man. Look, I can't be held responsible for the fact that I, went to school in the South. All right,
I think it's more that you're super high when all of this is happening.
Honestly,
I think there might be something to Sean's theory.
I wish I was.
Oh no!
I wish that maybe in some of those older ones, probably, but not lately. I'll tell you that much. But we have quite a mind trip for you guys this week when we're reviewing the new Doctor Strange movie, the latest, number 14, if memory serves, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Made quite the killing at the box office. Now, it's Sunday when we record this. I think they were projecting around $80 million, which is, I think they were initially saying around 60 for what they were kind of guessing it would make. So that's a killer, man.
Yeah, the box office Mojo weekend estimate is $85 million, I think, which is not bad for a November weekend.
Look, if we've learned anything, people love sentient capes.
They do. They absolutely do. And here's the thing, man. And it was funny because I saw this thing on Facebook and everything, and I captured the picture. I sent it to my dad, and I said, "Did you ever in your 50 years reading comic books ever think Doctor Strange would be a character walking around Disney World talking to kids?" He's just
he said yes.
He's like, not in my wildest imaginations could I have ever thought that would be a thing. But dude, that is a thing that is going on right now. Doctor Strange is walking around with a book and like a kid's touching it and saying a spell or some such nonsense. I don't know.
Yeah, sadly, my kids always want Wong.
Well, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Kids love the Wong character. Now,
well, he relates to them. He loves Beyonce.
It's good stuff. Now, for those of you who don't know, there are actually 2 other Doctor Strange movies out there, and we've already covered them on this show. So if you want to go back and hear those, I forget what numbers they are, but that'll be the nice thing for you to go through and try to hunt them all out. And then you're going to see all the other cool ones that are in there and go, gosh, this is the best podcast I've ever listened to, and you'll be right. But we reviewed most recently the animated Doctor Strange movie from Marvel not too awful long ago. But then it's almost 2 years, maybe a little bit more than
Probably
that.
Been 2 years, yeah. Since but Peter Hooten's on DVD now, so people can't watch it on YouTube. They have to go buy it now.
So the 1978 Doctor Strange movie, it was on YouTube for the longest time. And when I actually recorded the latest one of the kind of not too long ago videos for YouTube and everything, I was like, hey, I'll link to the whole thing in the notes and all that. And I go to look for it, and it's gone. And that's because Shout Factory's actually bought it and put it out on DVD. I looked for a Blu-ray. They didn't have it, sadly. I don't know why they don't have a proper 1080p source for that piece of
you definitely want 1080p clarity when you're watching the 1978 Doctor Strange with Peter Hooten.
You got to comb through all those mustache hairs, man. It's beautiful. I got to see it in just glorious high def. So go back and listen to those old ones and everything, but we had to get through those. We weren't even really planning on doing the animated one until we realized we were just like, you know what? If we go back to the animated one, chances are we'll probably really hate that one even more so. So we got those out of the way and everything. So those are on backlog. So check those out and everything. But we're going to be reviewing Doctor Strange today. But first, we got a little bit of housekeeping to tend to, my friends. There are some people out there who are, some of the greatest human beings I believe the good Lord has ever bestowed on us. Those are people that go to patreon.com/HMP and give of their hard-earned money to help this show kick along and everything. And I want to really quickly talk out some of these gorgeous, gorgeous people. First of all, these are executive producers. These are the people who have given the most of themselves and apparently love us the most. Of course, long-time listener, Matthew Schnapp. Matthew is a big time, and he kicked up his Patreon goal here not too awful long ago, so that guy is awesome as always. And of course, the great Jim Beverly. Jim, there's something coming in your future and not too awful long. Stay tuned, buddy. We got some plans for you, my friend. And of course, Holly, thank you for all that kind of good stuff as well. Those are our executive producers for the month of November. Kind of associate executive producers, as it were. You got Beta Foo, Khalil DeMakel, Eric Freeman, Rocket Face, and Gorgon Campy. Also excellent people. Now, the next couple are also very awesome people. Many of them around for quite some time. A couple of them brand new, and I'll point those out to you as well. Of course, we got long-time subscriber here, Mike Eaststep, Apollonius, and Louis Longshadow. Those guys have been around for a long, long time doing it up and doing it right. Of course, Lauren Carroll, who actually followed us over from the Preacher podcast initially, if memory serves.
I think she's in Australia.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think she's the Australian listener.
I thought she was New York. I could be wrong.
She might. Maybe both. You never know. People get around these days.
You could be in both places at one time. We've seen that in this Doctor Strange movie. We'll talk about it. And, of course, Steve Hayden. I believe Steve is new, as well as Martin Goebel. No, he's been around for a month. He's been there a little bit. And, of course, Winston Spalding, a couple of newbies in there, man. So thank you guys so much, no matter if it was $1 all the way up to the current $20 that everybody's kind of, thrown into the show and everything. And for those of you out there that don't know, when you do stuff like that, it gets you special privileges. You don't only get to, help us keep the lights on around here. You also get special privileges and whatnot as well. And one of those is actually voting on movies that we'll be reviewing on this here program. Can you believe that, guys? We actually give listeners a choice. And it's
about time. It's about time. Is there a choice just to go silent for a week? Because there might be some people that want us to do that.
If my mom listened to the podcast, she would probably vote on that category, I would say. I don't know where he thinks he's funny. None of this is funny. I don't know who gets this. I don't know who listens to it, but it's all terrible. That's a great impression of my mom. So now, you guys don't even know this. You, Bruce, and Sean don't even know this, but I'm going to drop for you right now well, maybe you do. I know Sean doesn't. I'm going to drop for you the movies that you guys, as Patreon subscribers, will be able to vote on in the month of November. And so the one with the highest number of votes we'll be reviewing. So
is Superman 4 one of those movies?
No, that may be next. That'll be next month. I'll put that in next
Superman
month.
4 should be one of the movies.
Oh, don't worry.
Dr. Giggles.
Don't worry. We've got a couple that might be up your alley. So there's a varying degree of ones here. So first one is we're going to review the pilot, which is a full episode. The pilot episode for The Greatest American Hero. I know that's right up Bruce's alley right there.
Believe it or not, I'm walking on air if that one wins.
Indeed. We actually, way back when it initially released theatrically, we talked about Sin City 2, but we have yet to talk about the original Sin City. So that is your second choice. Third choice is the 1989 Batman, classic there, of course. And what's sure to be Sean's ultimate favorite one in this one, so if you want him to suffer the most, this is the one you vote for. Ultimate Avengers, the movie. That's an animated joint from Marvel, so...
I've seen that. I like that movie. At least I remember liking it. I have no idea.
It's a crib note version of the book, to be honest. I mean, though they do leave out a lot of the really awesome stuff that's in the book, but whatever. But you can vote.
I prefer the Young Avengers animated movie, so maybe we'll get that on there next time.
Yeah, that's what this is for, man. We give it to the audience, and the audience says we want it or we don't want it, and we appreciate you guys that do that. Patreon.com/HMP. All that good stuff will be up there and everything. But we're not done there, folks. I know it's a heck of a lead up here and everything, but we got to, take another small moment out for the people that take the time out of their glorious day to head on down to the iTunes and drop us a 5-star review, a.k.a. Humdinger.
Humdinger.
Now, this one is from someone I can't pronounce because it's one of the internet names. You know how that is. So help me out here. What do you think this is? Tcnich. Tnish?
I'm pretty sure it's Larry.
Larry, good. It's my dad's name. I wish my dad knew how to podcast even work. I'm just like, your son does 130 episodes now of stuff that you actually love to listen to. Can't be bothered. Thanks, Dad.
Hey, my dad started listening to Heroes and Villains lately, so anything's possible.
Anything is possible. I've put it on his phone. He's subscribed on the iTunes app and everything. He still just is like, I don't know how this thing works. He's just like, can't be bothered. This one is entitled Great Comic Podcast, 5 stars, a.k.a. Humdinger. No?
Humdinger.
All right, there. Just found this podcast last week, and I have binged almost 20 episodes on breaks at work and on a road trip. Whew, that's a lot of Adam, Bruce, and Sean right there. I appreciate it.
Go see a doctor soon. It can be habit for me.
Maybe a Doctor Strange. Yeah, I'll see myself out. I appreciate the diversity of movies and opinions that are involved with this group. Now I've got a list of superhero movies to catch up on, and I'm looking forward to it. Have to say, it was funny listening to the first few episodes with the current knowledge that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 will be the easiest Stallone connection yet. Now that we know he's in it, of course. And how perfect will he be in that kind of tone? Thanks for the consistently great content. That is from Larry, also known as Tanek. I don't know. Anyways, we thank you for that, and we'd appreciate it if you as well dropped down to the iTunes there, gave us a 5-star review, a.k.a. Humdinger.
Humdinger.
Very good. So thank you so much for that. Gentlemen, let's get into the program here. Here is the trailer for Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange, you think you know how the world works? What if I told you the reality you know is one of many?
This doesn't make any sense.
Not everything does. Not everything has to. Through the mystic arts, we harness energy and shape reality. We travel great distances in an instant.
How do I get from here to there?
How did you become a doctor?
Study and practice, years of it.
There's a strength to him.
But is he ready?
Be careful which paths you travel down, Strange. Stronger men than you have lost their way. I am death. In pain. You'll die protecting this world.
I can't do this.
There is no other way.
I've spent so many years peering through time, looking for you.
What's this, my mantra?
It's the Wi-Fi password. We're not savages.
All right, that was the trailer for Doctor Strange, our new release review of this week. IMDb plotline. As you know, IMDb always 100% correct in everything they say and or do. A former neurosurgeon embarks on a journey of healing only to be drawn into the world of the mystic arts. This is starring Benedict Cumberbatch, Chiwetel Ejiofor, Rachel McAdams, Benedict Wong, Mads Mikkelsen, Tilda Swinton, directed by Scott Derrickson, written by Scott Derrickson, as well as C. Robert Cargill, with a bit of help there by Jon Spaihts. I think he wrote the original script, if memory serves. Bruce, we have covered Doctor Strange on this podcast many a time. What do you have us in the comic book connection for us this time, sir?
Well, it seems strange, pun intended, that this is the third time I'm talking about Doctor Strange, and even stranger that there's still so much untouched material. Now, I've talked about Strange and Mordo already, but I've got a whole slew of things to illuminate for this movie's comic book ties. First off is Caecilius, notable for having one of the most difficult names to spell in Marvel Comics. Go ahead, Adam. Without looking, spell Caecilius 5 times fast.
Cyclitich. Boom.
Perfect. Nailed it.
Dynamite.
Well, anyway, he first showed up in 1965, and he was a disciple of Baron Mordo, and Baron Mordo would use him to deliver messages. I guess he was kind of the sorcery equivalent of a gopher. But one of his first missions was kidnapping the Ancient One, which he failed at miserably. And then Caecilius met his ultimate downfall when he was successful in stealing Strange's cloak of levitation. However, by the end of this battle, Strange used his magic to wipe the knowledge of magic completely from Caecilius's mind. I guess you could say that the movie upped his stature by an order of magnitude or two. In a weird series of events, Caecilius did once try to ambush Doctor Strange by disguising himself as Joe Crocker, which at first glance I thought was Joe Cocker, who I saw live in Nashville once, and he was wonderful singing his catalog of cover songs. But the Ancient One was born in Camartage, a hidden land high in the Himalayas, more than 500 years ago. He spent his youth as a peaceful farmer until his friend Kalu discovered the power of magic. When Kalu shared his knowledge of the mystic arts with the Ancient One, the two disagreed on how they would use the powers. The Ancient One wished to turn their village into a utopia, while Kalu desired power and conquest over nearby villages. I think if you take the whole story and move it to Ireland, it kind of works for the androgynous Celtic version we get in the movie. The Ancient One encounters the being Eternity through his meditations, and the latter gives him the Amulet of Agamotto, also known as the Eye of Agamotto. And would it be great for the Stallone connection if we found out that Agamotto means tiger in some ancient wizard language? Well, sadly, it turns out Agamotto is named after a person. And Agamotto is a powerful mystic being, and he used the eye during his time as Sorcerer Supreme of the Earth. Some believe that it was discovered by Agamotto among the skies and stars where it had drifted for ages. Others claim that it was created by Agamotto himself. The relic has mystical ability to span distances and dispel disguises and illusions, which kind of makes it a bummer at Halloween parties, but occasionally it does have its uses. Now, Dormammu always wants the eye, and so does Doctor Doom, but at the end of every adventure, it always winds up where it belongs, in the Sanctum Sanctorum. The Cloak of Levitation is an important relic in the comics as well, but you may not know that there have been 2 cloaks. Originally a blue one before the current red one came into prominence. The blue cloak had some minor abilities and spells woven into it, but the latter one, the red cloak that Strange is usually seen wearing now, actually had the levitation thing going for it, because someone at Marvel realized it'd be a good idea if their magic guy could fly. Now, in addition to granting its wearer the ability to levitate, it's also been known to act on the will of its wearer without command. It can respond to a mere thought. Also, it possesses resistance to damage from the elements and physical attacks, as well as protection from magical attacks. It seems to be able to change shape to mimic other clothes, such as a business suit, which helps with the old disguise. And it has the ability to act as an extra limb, like we see in the movie, grabbing, striking, even rapping. With a W, it's not part of the Sugar Hill Gang. And it is definitely a must-have for fashion-conscious sorcerers everywhere. Finally, Christine Palmer, portrayed by Rachel McAdams in the movie, is also a character from Marvel Comics. She's not necessarily associated with Doctor Strange, and also in the comics, she isn't a doctor, but rather a nurse, and she happens to be the roommate of one Linda Carter, the original night nurse, which means along with Claire Temple, we now have 2 kind of night nurses in the Marvel Studios universe, but still no sign of Linda Carter, who I personally think should be played by Linda Carter, because on the inside, I'm still 9 years old. Now, Christine Palmer leaves her home in an exclusive Midwestern suburb against her father's wishes, intending to make a new life without her father's money. She travels the country, finding a job as a private nurse for a paraplegic at a spooky mansion, but then she decides that she does not want her life to be an episode of Scooby-Doo, so she takes a job at Metropolitan General Hospital, where she first encounters Storm, Nightcrawler, and some other X-Men, and she begins a career of providing clandestine emergency medical services to superheroes and vigilantes that dare not trust the traditional healthcare system. And I feel like I should insert some kind of Obamacare joke, but I dare not tread in those waters this close to an election. So I'm just going to hand things back over to you boys.
Yep. Now, so this thing is, like I said, made a lot of money at the box office and stuff. Not a character that I think a ton of people are very familiar with, but I think are going to become very, very familiar with. Let's get this going right away. I just want to say this for, again, I know we probably have some new listeners to the show and everything. On this here program, we spoil the whole darn thing. We're going to talk about everything in this movie from here on out, so there are spoilers and everything. So if you haven't seen Doctor Strange and you don't want stuff, spoiled for you anything, A, thanks for downloading the show. B, go ahead and pause that bad boy. Come on back when we're done and everything. But if you don't care about it being spoiled, keep on listening. I don't care what you do with your life.
And we may even spoil some of the other Marvel movies unintentionally when we talk about sort of the surrounding circumstances here too. So bear that in mind.
But I mean, like I said, according to the box office and the box office of all the other Marvel movies, chances are if you're listening to this program, you've probably seen them anyways. So, come on now. So let's get this out of the way because I want to talk about this because I think it's really important to the whole thing, and I'm sure we'll come back to it every now and then. How did everyone see this? 2D, 3D?
Go ahead, Bruce.
I saw it in 3D twice, but I didn't do IMAX or anything like that. Just regular 3D, real 3D, whatever they call it.
Yeah. Okay. So I did the real 3D as well. My thought was I would be able to go and do it on Saturday, but my time messed all up and everything, so I wasn't able to do it. But I think I'll go see it again, as I do with most Marvel movies, in the full big IMAX and all that kind of jazz. Sean?
I saw it once. The first time I saw it was regular, and the second time I saw it was in 3D.
Okay, cool. Because I think that's a very interesting distinction to make with this movie and everything, because there's a lot of people that really slough off 3D and everything, and I'll be honest, as a guy who goes to see just about everything in all kinds of different formats and everything, the majority of time that a 3D movie is out there, I mean, including a lot of the Marvel movies and stuff as well, it's kind of ho-hum. It's not all that great. But I will say this, and maybe you guys can back me up. I think the 3D in this thing is absolutely a must.
My big question is for Sean, how did the 2D hold up compared to the 3D? Because I'm a little worried that in 2D, this movie might not deliver.
Well, I will get to that.
Okay.
But I will tell you that the movie is better in 3D for sure.
Yeah, I think from a visual standpoint, it adds a lot. Where most of the time it's like, hey, look, stuff's 3D, isn't that cool? And for where we go with Doctor Strange, as far as alternate dimensions and realities and stuff like that, I think it really is probably one of the strongest uses of 3D, especially in the Marvel Cinematic Universe to this point.
Yeah, I just didn't know if there's somebody out there who's like the guy who's only seen Avatar once on his cell phone and doesn't understand what the big deal is.
James. Well, I saw it twice in IMAX, and I still don't know what the big deal is. So,
oh man.
So there. So Bruce, let's get your kind of cursory, kind of reaction to everything. What were your thoughts going in, and were they exceeded, or did they kind of fail a little bit?
I think that it was pretty much what I was expecting. They did manage to surprise me a little bit because I didn't know much about the story going in. I knew Mads Mikkelsen was going to be a bad guy. I knew Mordo was still going to be a good guy here. So I was looking maybe for Mordo's turn to happen sooner than it did. And I really did not expect to actually see Dormammu in this movie like we did.
Yeah, I think that was one of the big things because, you never really heard about it too much. That they kept it in secret pretty darn well. I mean, one would assume, given Doctor Strange, that Dormammu would be there. But I was just like, is it going to happen? Is it going to happen? I don't know if it's going to happen. And sure enough, when the name was dropped, I was like, oh, hello, we're actually going to do something. And so my guess is, Sean. I'll go because I enjoyed this movie a lot. I think it was a very fun time. Again, I thought the 3D really handled things quite well, and I'll definitely be going to see it again. I think it did at least what I wanted it to, but at this point, it's kind of odd because I think with Marvel movies and everything, I have kind of a built-in expectation, and I think that, you know, it at least met that expectation, and that's a good thing. With DC, I'm always kind of praying. I'm just like, please just be better than so many other people are saying that you are. And people are not saying good things. Please be better than all of that. And sometimes they meet those expectations. Many times they don't. But with Doctor Strange, I think with a lot of Marvel movies, I was just like, hey, here's a level of expectation that I have with Marvel movies, and it definitely at least met that expectation. Sean?
All right. So gather around, kids. Let me tell you a story.
Ooh.
So the first time I saw this movie was in 2D. And I think that I had actually said before with the cartoon. So I kind of knew going into this one that I'm not the biggest Doctor Strange fan, which I know is sacrilegious. I know everybody loves Doctor Strange, but for me, like magic is like I'm not a big fan of magic, and I'm not a big fan of fantasy. I'm just not.
Wait a minute, I think we just got a hate email from David Blaine. Hold on.
So I saw the 2D version of this, and I was like, and don't get me wrong, like this movie is solid. It's a solid movie. I am a sucker for a movie about like a guy getting back, guy turning it around.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's something inherent in the system with Doctor Strange for me, because I saw it in 2D and I was like, you know what, that was pretty good, but everyone seems to think this movie is super, super awesome. So I went and saw it in 3D also. And it's good. I mean, the movie is good. It's a solid movie. It's what you would expect from Marvel. Like, oh, that's a really good movie. But there was something about Doctor Strange, just specifically, that with this character, I am not a huge fan of him. Like, I get it when it's the Punisher thing, where Punisher is a great character when he is a side dish, not the entree. And for me, it's the same thing with Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange is going to be awesome in the Avengers. He's going to be awesome as a side character in Thor. He's going to be great for that stuff. But a standalone Doctor Strange movie, after a while, I was looking at my watch, which I know you're not supposed to do in these things, but I couldn't help it. I think that it's cleverly written. I think it's done well. But there's something about the character where I'm just not fully on board with him, because there's no rules to anything. We can do anything we want. and I do like, I like the astral plane. I think the way they did that was cool. I think that Benedict Cumberbatch is great as Doctor Strange, except that American accent is the same thing that a lot of British people do, where it's all in there, it's all nasally, and it doesn't exactly sound like an American accent.
Says the guy,
that's the way he speaks.
Says the guy who every person who's ever emailed us has been like, when did Adam Carolla come on your podcast?
Yes.
Here's a question. If I can just go ahead and build off of that, I think that the movie would have worked just fine if Cumberbatch had portrayed a Doctor Strange who trained in London and came to New York to practice. I think he could have just kept his normal Cumberbatch Sherlock goodness, because I'm a big fan of Cumberbatch, particularly Sherlock, and I think it wouldn't have taken away from the movie if he just spoke in his native tongue.
I totally agree, and it seems like to me, if you need a pompous, arrogant ass, bring in Benedict Cumberbatch, because this is the fourth role he's had where he plays someone who's completely arrogant, and it's perfect. I mean, don't get me wrong, he is perfectly cast in this movie. But as I've stated, there is something about this character where I'm just like, he's a magician. We get it. It's good. Okay, let's move on.
I'll be honest. I thought, due to the trailer and everything, I thought the accent would bother me, and I fell in real quick. Didn't bother me a bit, and I actually thought it was really darn good. We've seen him enough at this point there. He's not like a new guy. Like Christian Bale had to go around in all of the first Batman movie and just do an American accent in all the press and everything, because he didn't want to throw people off that he was not American, right? But we've seen enough of Benedict Cumberbatch at this point to it's just like he's a a fairly good household name at this point. Maybe not.
Yeah, and I love Cumberbatch, but I do think Bell did a better American accent because I do kind of forget that that's not his native accent.
Yeah, but he
with
sucks.
Cumberbatch, I always knew.
But he sucks so hard on the Batman voice that it kind of negates all that, doesn't it?
Maybe Doctor Strange should have been, by the hoary hands of Hogarth, I'm not going to put up with this. Mm-hmm. Maybe that would have been the answer.
when he goes into magic form, you mean? Yeah, I like that. Just
or what would be better is if when he's the surgeon in New York, he has the American accent, but once he gets his magic powers, they put like a Harry Potter spell on him that gives him an English accent.
Ooh, there you go. It's like he gets possessed by some sort of ancient spirit or something that's British. That works.
And
I like that.
To me, though, the accent isn't the biggest issue with this movie. To me, there's a lot of and don't get me wrong, it's so well written and it's clever, and the way that he defeats Dormammu is clever, but there's something just inherent in this character where it's just, I get it. Watching this movie, it's just like, yeah, I get it. Okay, all right, he's magic. Okay,
so maybe Cumberbatch will go to like the Halle Berry School of Acting, where 3 different X-Men movies, 3 totally different accents. By the third one, she's like, "Yeah, I'm from Cleveland."
Spin the wheel of accents.
Oh man!
Now I do want to say this. I'm glad because there was I mentioned it slightly in the YouTube video, I believe. I recorded for like 25 minutes, but I edit stuff down quite a bit. But the cool part is that at some point they, Kevin Feige came out and said, no more origin stories. And when they talked about, hey, by the way, we're also going to be doing Doctor Strange, I'm like, how do you do Doctor Strange and not have an origin story? And he kind of backed down on that, and it was just like, well, for established characters like Spider-Man. So we're not going to, Spider-Man Homecoming is not going to be an origin story. We're just going to jump into Spider-Man being Spider-Man. But I'm really glad that we've got the actual Doctor Strange origin story here, because I think it's something that really needs to be told. And I thought they did a pretty good job just making him who he was supposed to be, just this arrogant dude who just had too much on his, and sometimes not enough on his plate, I guess.
And something I'm going to say that this movie does better than even the comic books have ever done is he doesn't completely change his personality. I mean, when he goes from being the arrogant neurosurgeon to being the would-be sorcerer supreme, he still has that same little edge to him. And it seems like too often in the comic books, they show him as the world's biggest jerk. He goes to Camartage, and then he comes out and he's like this enlightened monk or something, and he never shows the signs of the person he was before. And in this movie, they are smarter with it. They have him retain some of that, and it kind of makes sense because that's what makes him successful as a sorcerer in this universe that they built for him.
Yeah, it's absolutely
the redemption story here is very good. I mean, it is a solid redemption story. But you're right, Bruce. I really do like the fact that by the end of this movie, he is sort of still the same guy, just better. He's built a better machine by the end of this movie. But he's still kind of the same dude, and that was a nice touch, I thought. You're right.
Like, I'm really looking forward to when we get to see Stephen Strange and Tony Stark in a room together having the ego battle.
See, I really like that, and again, it's one more step closer to the comic book version. I have to specify that because everybody would be like, I know the Illuminati with Jay-Z in it, but I don't know the one with Tony Stark in it. But with the Illuminati, with Captain America, with Iron Man, we got Black Panther coming on the way, with Doctor Strange and everything. Man, if we can get a Namor up in this son, man. And we still got to Reed Richards. We got to somehow finagle over from Fox, but. I like how that's still coming around to where we got like the smartest, dudes kind of coming in, and eventually it's going to happen at some point.
Was Michael Douglas still alive at the end of Ant-Man? I can't remember.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So he could be the Reed Richards in the Illuminati.
Oh, boom. Perfect. Oh, my God. You just solved my problem.
Perfect.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. Look at you. Kevin Feige. Hire the man for crying out loud. That's a genius choice.
I work cheap, man. I work cheap. I'm non-union.
He mostly has Doritos and Vienna sausages. I don't know why that's what he wants to be paid in, but the man wants what the man wants. And by God, you can afford it.
His 401k is a storage building filled with Vienna sausages.
My ship has come in.
But that's not a bad idea, though, for the Illuminati in the movies.
I thought you meant the Vienna sausages. I was a little worried for a minute.
A storage room full of Vienna sausages. Sign me up.
You make the Illuminati in the movies not the superheroes. You make them the people who either used to be superheroes or are tangentially related to them. You know, I think that if you have it, if you use Michael Douglas, you use General Ross. You use that's a really solid idea. Sam Jackson's character.
Well, I feel General Ross and Sam Jackson have too much of a close tie to the military to where they would have too much of a say over stuff, and it would just
I could see Nick Fury doing it, but not Thunderbolt Ross. No, but I could see Nick Fury there because after Winter Soldier, man, he's not even alive anymore.
That's true.
As far as the public knows.
He gone.
He's not there no more. But yeah, I really want to. Yeah, it's coming together, man, and I'm digging it.
Something this movie does, though, that I think is a nice touch. You're going to know whether or not you like this movie very early on, because even though it is an origin story, it opens with this psychedelic scene where Caecilius and his zealots, I think they call them, are battling Tilda Swinton in the mirror dimension, and everything's bending and folding and magic's going on. So you know right off the bat what you're going to get, and you don't have to sit around waiting to the 1 hour mark like a lot of movies want to make you do before you get to see something cool. And I thought that was nice, giving us all that before we go to the operating theater with Stephen Strange.
Yeah, these days you pretty much have to, whether it's like a horror movie or this, and like I think in horror movies it kind of hurts more than it helps, but they always got to give you a little taste of, you know, some sort of action beat up top before they go into the story proper. It's a little bit formulaic these days, but I think especially with a movie like this, if you started out with without any fantastical elements up top, you may lose people around, you know, Mark 30, you know?
Yeah. Now, with the pre-Camartage version of Stephen Strange here, where we see him as a neurosurgeon, we see him interacting with this ER physician, this Christine Palmer, played by Rachel McAdams, I'm really liking what we see here. I really think that Cumberbatch has given us that arrogant neurosurgeon. I mean, just the way he walks down the hallway when he's talking to Rachel McAdams' character, and then the condescending way that he talks to her when he sort of uses a little innuendo, and then he just calls her dumb for not getting what he implied or something like that. I'm liking it. How are you guys feeling about Cumberbatch as the surgeon, Dr. Strange?
I think he walks a great line in this because he is an arrogant jerk, but he's not so horrible that you just hate his guts. And I think that's a very fine line to walk, to where you're just like, oh, this is a guy who, you know, knows his stuff, is the top of his game, is a bit of a turd, but at the same time, he's not so much of a turd that you just hate his guts.
I totally disagree with you, Adam. I think that I think Cumberbatch does not have that Bill Murray style where Bill Murray can play a jerk throughout the entire movie and you still like him anyway. I think that Cumberbatch is playing a jerk knowing full well, you know, he's read the script clearly, so he's going to depend on the script to have his redemption. Whereas the character at the beginning of this movie, there is nothing that is foretelling that he is going to have, that he's got something inherent in him that is good.
Well, that's probably true. That's probably a little bit more of my bias of knowing where things are going, I guess. And my love for the actor.
And as far, Bruce, we've talked about this off air a lot. I think that surgeons and in my field, people who work in the camera department, they act like this. This is the way they behave in my experience all the time. That there's a lot of arrogance. There's a lot of like bulletproof egos and things of that nature.
I'll say that 16 years ago, when I was a medical student, that sort of personality was a little more common. But I think in 2016, just the environment that we work in, people aren't able to get away with being that abrasive like they used to be. People aren't as untouchable as they once were.
Oh, good. So it's just camera department people then now. Great.
Well, you have
and
to
administrators,
also,
hospital administrators.
Yeah, but here's the thing too. I mean, private practices, I think there's a bit of this too, though. I mean, because I have relatives in the medical field and stuff. What I see also in private practices, there's a bit of that.
And one thing I'll say too is reputation and arrogance aren't necessarily also belonging to the most skilled surgeon in the room. Because this is that magic Hollywood combination where he's arrogant because he's really, really good. But in real life, sometimes the people making the most money with the most arrogance and maybe the best reputation are the ones that actually are maybe mediocre in their skill level, like minimally competent sometimes, but they're just able to sell themselves really well.
I'm looking at you, everyone on Top 40 Music Radio.
Well, just in my own experience, when I was in practice in the Charlotte area there, the best known, probably the closest to a household name ophthalmologist was middle of the pack in terms of skill. And I'm not going to say any names so I don't get sued, but I think you guys know where I'm going with that.
He's a dude that he's always got the commercials and whatnot, usually on the radio. I think I know what you're talking about. Anyways, some dirt talking about ophthalmologists.
Anyway, back on track here. The way that he talks down to Nick, I guess is that other surgeon, the way that he really, really rubs his nose in it in the OR, which I don't think we really want to go off on the other tangent about how just pop quiz, guys. What percentage of like just basic OR technique do you think they got right in this movie?
I'm going to guess 0.
Well, they probably got something right.
I was thinking about 5% because they put it in a room.
It's no more accurate than the animated version was. I'll just leave it at that. In fact, some of the same mistakes. I was actually surprised how close, in a lot of ways, how close this movie is to the animated movie, man.
Yeah, it is surprising.
Like the best use of this unlimited magical ability is to conjure up a sword rather than go to the swordfish down at the mall and stuff like that.
Swordfish.
Kung Fu plays a much larger part in magic in Doctor Strange's world than it does in the Lord of the Rings world or Harry Potter's world or anything like that.
That's it's not untrue.
But I guess he's getting the bullet out. Has to do it by hand because his his little machine, which I'm not sure what that device was, but his little machine isn't working.
Time. We don't have time to set it up. We got to get this now.
Yeah, did not.
That's
look
true
up
though,
like
because the dude was like practically dead for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, he'd already been pronounced brain dead by Dr. Nick over there. Nick Riviera, I guess is who that was.
Hi, everybody.
But he pulls out the bullet, and then he's really full of himself. Trying to get Rachel McAdams to go to some talk he's going to give with him. Goes home and puts on his tuxedo, and then we get the big moment where he starts to become the character that we know as Doctor Strange when he's driving that car. Was that car an Audi?
That's a Lambo.
I know that. Okay, because Marvel always prominently features Tony Stark driving that high-end Audi that he has, but I guess when they have it crash and run off the road and permanently damage the surgeon's hands, that's sort of negative product placement. So
I'm about 9. I just don't want to get killed by car nerds. I'm about 90% on the Lambo. I don't know why. 10% of me is just going, somebody's going to write an email. Go, you stupid idiot.
I thought that was the new 2017 Fiero that they were showing, but I wasn't positive.
It's the new Ford Fiesta, brought to you by Doctor Strange.
But were you guys paying attention to the phone call he was on before he crashed?
Yeah, because it had to do with Iron Man 2.
No, it had to do with Civil War. When remember when Rhodey got shot down in the battle at the airport?
Okay.
And he was really, really hurt, and that's kind of when Civil War took a turn. No.
I've
Man,
heard reports.
Iron Man 2. It's Iron Man 2 because the guy, it was an experimental suit, and the guy's spine, it's that one where you're watching the Hammer technology suit, and it twists his spine.
Whose spine did it twist? Because this was an Air Force colonel, which is Rhodey. I mean, he even said we got an Air Force colonel.
I don't know, but I'm telling you, it's Iron Man 2. It's not Civil War.
Here's the thing.
I'm going to stand by that it's Civil War.
Well,
and I'll let the listeners sort it out for us.
Well, the director.
You a lie, you a damn lie.
Everyone, shut up, and I'm going to tell you the truth because Scott Derrickson has said you're wrong, Bruce. So
I disagree with Scott Derrickson.
I disagree with the man who wrote and co-wrote and directed the film.
Oh man, go back to, was it Sinister that he did or Insidious?
Yeah, he did Sinister.
Which I'm going to argue with him about what happened in that movie too.
I love Sinister up until the last 3 minutes. That's all. I love the rest of the movie though.
So what is it? What's the answer?
He ain't saying. He ain't saying, but it ain't that.
Oh, very good.
So there you go.
Okay,
I know what it ain't, but I don't know what it is.
What'd you think about the car crash, man? Pretty nice little scene of his hands just running through the dashboard in front of him.
It's good because you have to have something that's very kind of specific, because when you think car crash, the first thing that you don't think of is, well, that's just going to crumple your hands.
Yeah, man. But the way he even puts his hands forward, to try to stop himself. But honestly, they probably have some airbags that are big enough to keep your hands from going forward nowadays.
But what was cool,
you got to move the movie a little.
What was cool is it looked like the airbag didn't kind of come out in time, and then it looked like the car, like the dashboard and everything, almost like kind of like formed a cocoon like around like his body and everything, and where his hands were going out to kind of brace and everything, and it kind of ripped up like that. That's what I kind of got from it.
But what I definitely love is just how gnarly his hands look with that erector set over both of them. Traction when they show him.
Man, that is a nasty looking scene.
That's a nice thing coming from two dudes that have kind of done a horror movie and everything that's been pretty successul. It's just like, hey, let's throw in this kind of wild stuff.
Yeah, and then we get to see Benedict Cumberbatch letting his facial hair and his hair on his head grow a little bit longer, doing his best, Bruce Springsteen from the Streets of Philadelphia music video impression.
That's a weird and odd pull, but okay.
But he's going for that homeless chic while he's up in his enormous penthouse.
I thought you were going to go Forrest Gump or something.
Okay, I'll go with that too.
Very Forrest Gumpish, sort of. But no, it kind of works and everything. I do like how he is kind of down to his last. Like, they start to kind of show him poor. I wish they kind of would have made him seem a little bit like he was losing more than he kind of did even.
But the thing is, when you're kind of in that situation, I mean, Rachel McAdams even dropped the line, you've always spent money as fast as you can make it. Now you're spending money that you borrow. I mean, when you're in that kind of situation, what happens is the hammer drops all at once. You don't downsize from the big, nice apartment to a slightly smaller one. You go from living in that apartment till they literally drag you out to living on the street.
I just want one scene of him eating top ramen. That's all. Just one. You don't have to make it extreme. I don't want him sitting in the corner with the hobos playing a harmonica or anything. I just want him eating one cup of top ramen, just going, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah, he's eating the Oriental flavored ramen, and he goes, "Hey, wait a minute, the Orient,
great idea."
That would have been perfect. Oh man, but the next kind of fun part is when he's in physical therapy. And it's a really small part, but that physical therapist that just says, if it'll shut your arrogant butt up, I'll go dig that up for you. Never mind HIPAA. We're not going to go down that road here. But I kind of like that little bit of just that small moment we got of that physical therapist who clearly had as much of Stephen Strange's crap as he wanted to take.
That just shows you how bad that situation was. He's just like, you know what? I don't even care anymore. Here's what I'm going to do if it'll just shut your yap.
I'm willing to be arrested to shut you up.
I'm chancing going to jail because you're an idiot.
And then it's not exactly smash cut, but that's the way I'm going to describe it. He's going to the Cage basketball court, which I think is kind of a cool concept. And he's talking to Julia Roberts' ex-husband from Law & Order, right?
A little bit of I tell you what, Benjamin Bratt showing up in this thing, I did not expect. I'll tell you that much.
I know. I was expecting him to be the one asking the questions. I've seen Law & Order before.
But no, it was interesting, and we learned a little bit about something about him later on. We'll get to that when we get to it.
Yeah, he kind of hints at it here, though. He says he went to, I'm just like your basic New York guy playing basketball in the caged-in basketball court. But, when I broke my legs, I, just traveled to Nepal like you do and found a mystic person like you do, and now I'm back playing basketball.
He gave it up real simple, though, too, didn't he?
Yeah, but he didn't give up the details. Dr. Strange thought it was somebody doing an experimental medical procedure where there was no oversight in Nepal.
Well, you know how the Nepalese are about, rules. They don't care.
You don't make a Sherpa angry. That's what I know.
Not when you're going up the hill, at least.
Yeah.
They know the best mules.
And there was a little bit of the stereotypical comic book commentary before this movie came out. People don't like a single thing to be changed from the source material sometimes. Mm-hmm. And people were kind of up in arms that they were not going to be in Tibet like the comic books. But come on, man, Nepal, Tibet, it's a reasonable substitute. I got no problem with it being Nepal instead of Tibet.
And let's get down to the real reason why that kind of is. And everybody can say whatever they want to. And the fact of the matter really comes down to the
Chinese market.
Chinese market. That's really it. Chinese market. And AMC now is owned by a Chinese subsidiary and everything. So there are a large part. They're actually the highest, growing rate of moviegoers in the entire planet. So, you don't want to upset the apple cart with the people that are bringing in, next to the United States, the buku bucks, man.
They didn't want to lose out on that sweet World of Warcraft money.
Yeah, they went to see that piece of garbage, for crying out loud.
But I understand that China doesn't want any endorsement of an independent Tibet. Tibet's part of China, and they want to keep it that way. But do they expect people to not even remember Tibet's a place? And that may be very well what they expect. I don't know, but it's kind of weird to me that you couldn't say he went to the Himalayas near Tibet, but it's still in China.
Well, look, man, you don't want to bite the hand that's giving you the fiddle money. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
the fiddle money. I like that.
There's so much.
You don't, right, Adam? You
no.
don't want to do that, right, Adam?
That's correct.
Instead, you say, "Thank you, sir. May I have another?" Are you sure? You know what? We can put this in Nevada if you want, China. Nevada's kind of mystical. in those high mountains in the Nevada plains.
Exactly.
And you can play Keno if you want to. Who cares? Ancient One's over there sitting by the craps table, just smoking a cigar, going, "What am I doing?"
Looks like Howard Hughes.
Yeah.
And man, I kind of like our introduction to Mordo because for just a moment I thought I was watching an episode of Arrow when he showed up in that alleyway.
It seemed very Arrow-esque, didn't it?
Yeah, and the green thing with the hood over his head, doing the kung fu to the would-be burglar. I don't guess you call them burglars. The ruffians that are trying to mug Dr. Strange there.
I will give them this though, that the costumes are another thing that they never bothered me in this movie. And when you're watching something as terrible as Arrow, when like everyone has their own costume and you're like, this looks ridiculous, or like the Heroes of Tomorrow or Legends of Tomorrow, and half of the people on that show, you're just like, this is embarrassing. I'm embarrassed for you wearing that costume.
Which is so odd because Flash does it all so well. I can't put it together.
I don't get it either. But to get back to Doctor Strange, there's not a single thing, and they really could have gone overboard with the costuming here, and they didn't. And even Doctor Strange himself looks cool.
Yeah, and that's hard to do, man.
No kidding.
He didn't get a Todd McFarlane cape or anything. That's good. Just kind of, he didn't get a Todd McFarlane cape or anything. It was just very subdued. It was just like, hey, it's a cape. It's got the cowl on it. It can go up. It can go down. Let's just not go nuts.
And I also like, once again, how the movie kind of confirmed or sort of called out the internet naysayers that were upset about Tilda Swinton being cast as the Ancient One, because when he goes in there, he immediately walks up to the guy that looks like he's from a 70s Kung Fu movie and assumes that's the Ancient One until Tilda Swinton answers him, when he says something.
Yeah, I thought she was fine. It's like, and Tilda Swinton, obviously a great actor overall, but she just, no matter what role she's in, whether it's like this or Michael Clayton or whatever, she brings an odd sense into a movie that she's in, and I always like seeing her because she's just so darn unique,
Yeah, and I think she was a wonderful part of this movie. I think she played that character the way this movie needed it to be played, and I'm a big fan of hers now, more so than I was after we watched Constantine. And
you have to have somebody, I think, also that can stand up and hold their own with Benedict Cumberbatch, and that's a tough thing to do because he's a formidable dude.
And did she actually shave her head for this role, or did they do like a reverse Kevin Costner CGI where they took hair out instead of putting hair in?
No, they've got she's got a pretty short haircut as it is. I think it's pretty much just a bald thing. Bald cap.
They also
done really well, obviously.
Yeah, they took the extra step too to put some scars on the back of her head.
I like that.
That was a really nice touch.
And I was staring at those, and I was convinced that Tilda Swinton had actually shaved her head and also suffered a head injury just for this movie. So I was curious about that.
Well,
that's dedication, Holmes.
She's like, I'm driving my car off a cliff just so I can say that I at least went through the same.
But no, I loved her Ancient One here. I was really won over to her. I thought she really straddled the line of you're not really sure is she good or bad until the end of the movie. Not really sure if she's good or bad when you first meet her. Not sure what to make of her. Really has a nice androgynous tone to her. Like she's the only person I think that could play David Bowie in a movie because she's just that good.
Yeah. She played Bob Dylan
in this
movie.
Movie's good. There's not a poor performance.
Yeah, I have to agree. I'm trying to think about it all. I don't know. The guy that he thought, the guy that had the stumpy hand, I think he could have done better.
Him and his no words throughout the entire picture.
Well, the sad thing is he had a lot of lines. He just couldn't remember them. That's why he didn't do a good job.
They all got edited out. He sounds like Mickey
cut his
Mouse.
hand off for this movie.
That's what we call dedication. I wonder if he got a hazard pay for that.
But, man, we get Stephen's introduction to the mysteries of the world when the Ancient One finally brings him in and then socks it to him. We get this is straight up Steve Ditko trippy art from the heyday of the Silver Age origins of this character. I'm kind of like, I normally don't like this kind of stuff because it makes me feel like maybe I took too much cold medicine before I sat down to watch the movie. But I think this is going to be real popular amongst mushroom enthusiasts going forward.
You briefly just touched on it there, Bruce, and I don't know because I haven't seen any of the press on this. Has anyone talked to Ditko about this movie?
It'd be kind of hard to do.
Yeah. Oh, is he no longer with us?
I'm pretty sure he's not, but but maybe Doctor Strange could talk to him.
Ooh.
The reason why I'm bringing this up is that I did see that Stan Lee's name came first with the created by at the beginning of this movie.
Sometimes I just gotta take it where it doesn't even belong to me.
Yeah.
Oh, well, Stan Lee.
Hey,
yeah,
look,
Ditko may have got Spider-Man, but I got the Strange.
Here's the thing, man. With the world of Stan Lee that we live in, you're lucky Ditko's name was anywhere in this thing.
You are absolutely right.
He's like, man. Ditko was really could have been Bill Finger. Let's be honest. If we're not careful, because just on how this world works, right. Man.
Oh, that's right. I remember now. He wasn't even in the room when I came up with Doctor Strange.
Oh man, but when she takes Strange in and starts teaching him, and we kind of get our introductions to the way this magic works, the first thing I'm thinking back to is that animated series where I'm like, they have this unlimited potential to tap on. And, I like Dungeons and Dragons when I was in 7th, 8th grade. I like old school magic. So I want to see him shooting some magic missiles and fireballs and maybe a little feather fall here or there. And once again, they go back to the best use of magic is to conjure up a weapon that you could probably shortcut the whole process and just buy some weapons, But then they start opening up that little ring, the sling ring, which is very uncleverly named compared to things like the Eye of Agamotto and Dormammu and everything. Like, did they just run out of energy when they came up to the name for the sling ring?
You know what that's called? That's called a lunch decision. You get to, what do we call the thing that slings them around the ring? Sling ring. That's it. Lunch. Let's go.
Because there's not really any slinging involved. If you think about it, it's all pretty smooth.
Is that what it's called in the books? I
don't even know if such a thing exists in the books. I think this might be kind of a movie contrivance.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. I will say this because
the things in the books have cool 60s names like Eye of Agamotto. But the sling ring sounds like David Goyer came in for a day to come up with something.
How dare you? How dare you bring his name up? I like the writing of this movie. I know he has nothing to do with it.
And then we get to meet Wong for the first time. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that I like this Wong better than 1978's Wong.
Well, 1978's Wong walked around like he was lost in the place that he lived.
But he was a big Abbott and Costello fan, so he had that going for him.
You take the good,
I do like the idea. What they've done over the last few years with Wong, where he's no longer a manservant, which is probably a good call.
Yeah.
But now they're even making him more of like not just equal, but actually better than Strange. Like that's a smart call.
Yeah, I think it works well, man. And then we'll get to see how he plays out in the sequels because I'd like to see him go all Happy Hogan like Favreau did.
I'd like Strange to tell him to go get him something and then just serve it up to him, hot and steaming, if you will. I just want to go like, oh, you think I'm going to go get you something? Oh, you've got another thing coming, my friend.
And, probably the mass audience, their favorite part, the thing that's going to be most remembered from this movie is the Beyonce joke.
Well, I'm glad the Beyonce joke I'm fine with. I really wish we would have pulled the Drake joke. I don't think, I don't care for the Drake.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like you take a bunch, you have them say a whole bunch of stuff, then in editing you're supposed to cut out the ones that don't work and take the ones that do, and somebody just accidentally left an extra one in there.
Though, quick rewind, and we'll come right back. Boy, did I enjoy a Chuck Mangione drop.
Yes. Oh, man, I got to tell you, that's the part that was actually accurate about the operating theater there. When I'm in the operating room, there's a particular circulator that when she's the nurse working with me, we have our Pandora playing over in the corner. And our version of the game is the first one who can shout out the movie that the song was in. So it's usually like an oldies kind of station. And whenever a song pops up, we have to try to be the first one to shout out what movie that song happened to be featured in. And then you can tell there's like the cheap trick when you don't really know what movie it was in. You just kind of shout out The Big Chill or Forrest Gump.
And then there's just cheap trick. Now, I will say, I had to kind of, I kind of had to have a little moment there because I'm not quite to that level, of course, but I'm that Doctor Strange where it's just like, what, you don't know this from this artist, from this, all this kind of stuff, because I get particular about that. I hate people that like go, oh man, I love this song, and couldn't tell you who it's by, much less the name of the song.
Oh man, and I love the way he kind of dropped the flugelhorn reference there too.
Who doesn't love some flugel? Anyways, back to Beyonce.
I only knew who Chuck Mangione was because of an episode of King of the Hill. So I'm just
an episode of King of the Hill. I'm sorry, Chuck Mangione was mentioned many a time in King of the Hill for sure. So you caught only one of many episodes.
The first episode he was mentioned on was when I learned who the guy was.
Chuck Mangione. No, but I also like the. Again, Doctor Strange getting super, kind of smart and everything, and needs to kind of cheat his way as, this arrogant jerk would do, and just go, well, you can't look at these books and all that kind of stuff, and him just kind of, doing what I'll call just the regular portal where he's just snatching books out left and right and kind of tapping them on the shoulder. Yeah, it kind of
gave me just a slight flashback to the Addams Family for some reason.
Yeah, it did, but it was a solid bit. That's a nice little bit,
But then, the big moment comes when he gets when he discovers the Eye of Agamotto, and we see the apple being eaten and uneaten, uneaten, then it gets moldy, then it goes back to being uneaten again.
Super cool. I love that like, again, it's another thing of in a movie that a lot of people are saying, from what I've seen, that they kind of almost say too much and never show you, but really rather tell you. That's a great show rather than tell, for sure.
And it also led to another joke. Oh, they should put the warnings before the spells. That joke kind of got used about 3 times in this movie. So that was another fun one, I guess.
Worked well enough. I mean, it was a nice button to a big, kind of scene and everything. So.
And it serves for a good bit of exposition because that's when, Mordo and I don't think the Ancient One runs in, but Mordo and Wong run in, and they explain exactly what Caecilius had done with that particular spell that Doctor Strange is working on. And we get the idea we're moving towards the end because it's right at this time, I think, when the big attack comes on the London Sanctum.
Mm-hmm. Which I thought all of this stuff was really cool. I love all the just the kind of bending of time and space and everything. And a lot of people, like I was starting to say this earlier, but in the trailer and everything, everyone's first kind of, reaction when they saw this is just like, oh, we have already seen all this in Inception. And man, did this just kick what, kind of Inception did up to 11 and just go, no, this is like, I'm sorry, this is way cooler than that. And I like that movie. So
and it leads straight into the great battle that Strange has in the New York, the Greenwich Village on Bleecker Street there, the Sanctum Sanctorum that I know from the comic books. And I want to know, Sean, what did you think of the Cloak of Levitation? Was it an Ewok or a Scrappy-Doo kind of thing to you, or did you think it was fun?
No, I actually liked it because I always thought there was something super cheese about Doctor Strange's cape, and I like the concept of the cape has to choose you. I thought that was a clever bit of writing. There is a very dog-like quality to the cape, which I wasn't a fan of, but I do like overall, I like what they did with the cape because that could have very easily gone the other way, you know?
Yeah, I'm just glad the cape couldn't speak with a Caribbean accent and call him Annie. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, man, don't even start with me.
Holy cow.
But I really, really like the concept of that, like, iron suit or whatever, that sort of trap that he throws on Caecilius to stop him. I thought that thing was really cool. I like the way it just sort of unfolded bit by bit and pulled him back into that sort of scorpion position so that he couldn't move. I thought that was wonderful.
Really cool design on that, and like just the thought process that was put into that. Just go like, what would also look really cool?
And while Caecilius is chained up there in that wizard's iron straitjacket kind of thing, he tells Doctor Strange that the Ancient One is so ancient because she too calls on the power of Dormammu.
I thought that was interesting. I thought that was a clever twist from a character, like, involving a character that we're all kind of, like you said, there's a little bit of like, is this person exactly who they say they are? Is it all kind of on the up and up? Because there is a bit of a, while still you feel it's a good character, you feel like there's something else underneath that we don't really know about.
Well, the one thing that I to get back to it for a second, I'm sorry, Bruce, for cutting you off, but I'm going to forget if I don't bring it right now. You have to bring in Mads Mikkelsen to be the bad guy in this movie because he's really the only actor I can possibly think of who's going to out-creep the Ancient One in this movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's something just completely off about that human being where when you look at him, you're like, there is something totally wrong about this person.
Just even all the way back to the Bond movie, it was just like, this guy there's something about him that's weird, man.
I think he'd make a good Hannibal Lecter. They should cast him for that.
Don't write us, people. Good gosh.
But also, there's a part of me, like Baron Mordo seemed to be good in this movie, at least up until this point. I was kind of surprised by that because I expected Mordo to make his heel turn by this point in the movie. So I thought maybe they really are switching things up. Mordo's going to be good till the end, and maybe the Ancient One is the bad guy of this movie. I was open to that possibility at this point. So I think that has to be good writing when I know the characters really, really well, and I still think maybe it's going to turn out differently than I expected.
The only thing that I could say is, like, I wish there was a little bit more of at least a wink or a hint somewhere beforehand. That's all. Just nothing big. Just a little bit of like, that seemed questionable.
I'm going to get to that in a minute because we're coming down to it and we're not there yet with him, right? So I'll hold my comments till later.
Okay.
But, so they have the big showdown in New York, and then Doctor Strange kind of gets really upset because even though he was always sort of arrogant when he was a surgeon and he was doing it for his own ego, you find out there was still just a touch of humanity and compassion in him because he's really upset about the fact that he had to kill somebody via defibrillator shocks when he goes to the emergency room to get Rachel McAdams to drain his heart of blood.
I thought that was a really great point to put in there, that it still made him, like, while he was the jerk and everything, he still had compassion and still had that kind of, doctor's mentality of just like, look, I didn't get into this to, murder other people. My whole goal was to, get better so I could continue to help people.
And even mentions, medical ethics. The first tenet of medical ethics is first do no harm, primum non nocere. And I think you kind of have like an out clause. Like if somebody's trying to kill you with evil magic, it's cool with us if you go ahead and kill them first. I think it kind of is restricted to the practice of medicine.
That's not in the
bylaws?
practice
of wizardry.
Weird.
Yeah.
Huh.
In fact, I think they had an amendment where they specifically said if you ever go to Nepal and get magic powers, do what you want.
Free reign. Who cares?
You read that whole thing?
I just signed the bottom of papers. I don't read nothing.
But then we get this really, really nice battle in the mirror world where it's like MC Escher painting come to life here, and we see just how powerful Caecilius has become, and it pretty much looks like Mordo and Strange's gooses, respective geese, are cooked. And then the Ancient One shows up, and she flexes her muscles, and she's pretty darn impressive here.
The 3D in this thing is astounding at this point. It looks so darn good. There are a couple of shots
there's
here
like
that
the
just
car driving off the edge of the road and then driving back around, and you actually see the car bend. It's just some cool little a lot of work went into details that you wouldn't necessarily notice.
Yeah.
And I respect that.
This would definitely be one to go back and be able to kind of just see all the things that are going on, because so much is going on the screen for sure.
Not to mention, this is where we find out that in the Mirror universe, Stan Lee is a big Aldous Huxley fan.
Of course he is.
He's reading Brave New World and laughing he's reading The Doors of Perception. That's it. And he's laughing really hard. Like that's the funniest thing he's ever read. I thought that was kind of cool.
This sounds like something else I could rip off. Piece of cake.
Somebody should start a band about this.
But no, the fight scene is really good. I think it was, again, really imaginative, and because I don't sing the praises of 3D that much, but it really works here.
And I do have to say, this is probably the second movie I would ever recommend seeing in 3D for real.
Was the first one that animated Trolls movie that also came out this weekend?
Yes, it is.
But go see that one first.
My buddy Mike directed that movie. He is
Mike Mitchell.
He's a very good guy. I like that guy.
He does some of the voices in the movie. He's a talented guy.
He is.
But welcome to this episode of Troll Talk. Anyway, but we see that little symbol, that evil Dormammu symbol glowing on the forehead of the Ancient One. And it lets us know that Caecilius was telling the truth about where some of her power comes from. And they really hold out on that. I mean, she has that nice little scene where she's getting ready to die, and we see the lightning standing still in the sky, and she has her conversation with Dr. Strange, which in a weird way, I don't know why this came to mind, but it kind of reminded me of Roy Batty talking to Han Solo at the end of Blade Runner there.
You know, for me, this is a really nice moment that they did not have to have, where they're showing you the humanity of both characters. And specifically with the Ancient One, you know, it's not pseudo spiritual babble. It's just good, solid advice that she's giving him about, you know, that life is not infinite. You need to enjoy your moments here. And it's a really nice little beat that they didn't have to have in this movie, and they gave it to you.
And she explained it kind of the way a parent explains something to a kid too. It's like, yes, I know I seem like a hypocrite, but I can handle this responsibly. You don't have the wisdom yet to do that, so you will continue to do as I say and not as I do. You know, it's sort of one of those talks that kind of makes sense. At least if you're a parent, it makes sense, right, Sean?
Yeah, without a doubt.
But then we go to Hong Kong, where all heck is breaking loose in Hong Kong. Hong Kong was the fall of Wong there. You know, he has died when Doctor Strange and Mordo make it there. And Mordo's already pretty miffed at the Ancient One because he saw that those devil horns of Dormammu glowing on her forehead.
He was right about you. You are stealing from the text.
And that's when I said, I get it. You know, this being, you know, having all this sorcery and wizardry and kind of the tone has me in a Dungeons and Dragons state of mind. And when Mordo starts going on like this, I say, I get it. This guy's lawful evil. Like he's all about the letter of the law, not about what's good or maybe, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Makes sense.
But he's so rigid that he can't see, you know, there's no good reason to break a law kind of guy.
Yeah,
and then, you know, the big fight happening in Hong Kong, which is not going well for anybody. Wong is dead, and then out comes the Eye of Agamotto. And I kind of saw this coming when he was working with the Apple, that this, you know, time control, because that's not a power that you typically see associated with the Eye of Agamotto in the comics. So if they're going to add that specific power, I figured that was going to have to come into play in the climax, or else it was written by David Goyer, which it wasn't.
But you got to admit, though, at least that's something that they planted ahead of time and just didn't conjure out of no pun intended, out of nowhere and just
they
said
even
like,
warned
that's what does
stuck
that.
in an infinite time loop. You know, they gave us the necessary groundwork to have the climax play the way it should.
Yeah. And let's talk about that for a minute, because that is such a great look. As much as I can't stand magic being the backdrop of all this stuff, It is such a cool visual, everything moving backwards and people fighting within things going back to the way they were. Such a great, neat concept.
Like, as the wall's being rebuilt, he throws Caecilius so he gets stuck behind the tiles. But my favorite part of it all is when stuff starts backing up and Wong comes off of that piece of rubble that speared him through the chest, and he comes back to life and then looks at Steven, and he goes, I know, natural order of things. I'm breaking those laws. And he goes, well, don't stop now. Wong finally proved he was more flexible than Mordo.
And sometimes you just got to, let it happen when it involves your own life.
And a lot of cool visuals here. And then he flies up into the dark dimension, and we actually get a face put to Dormammu. I was not expecting that in this movie. I was expecting Dormammu to be something that was mentioned, maybe even throw something at the end of the credits, kind of Thanos style, in the Avengers. But they just went ahead and gave us Dormammu in the first movie, which I honestly didn't think that was going to happen.
Two awesome things about it. One, so clever. This bit here, love it. It's my favorite part of the movie. Two, I didn't realize this, voiced by Benedict Cumberbatch.
No, not voiced by him, but it was mocapped by him, but voiced supposedly as someone else.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought he looked more like Smaug than he sounded like Smaug.
It was
or
the big
Smaug.
belly.
I'm sorry, Smaug.
Smaug.
I don't want to get people angry.
It does sound like you have a speech impediment when you say Smaug, though.
So, I didn't quite get what was going on when he first flew up there to see Dormammu, and he just got blasted. But then, it clicks in real quick, because once he dies, I know he's not going to stay dead. And I said, well, it's got to be the time thing. And then he comes back and says, I've come to bargain. And I thought it was fun just how much that, because a lot of things would let us see it 3 times and say, you know what, they've got the point. But it just keeps happening. Oh, it's a little Groundhog Day here, I guess.
Yeah,
we
it's
already
a great
mentioned Bill Murray
Groundhog
once. Let's mention him again.
Great Groundhog Day double feature, baby. How can you go wrong? I submit that you cannot.
This piece here, this piece of this movie, it's the reason why I'm not just completely lambasting this movie, because it is so interesting. It is so clever. It's such a great way to move forward with this character. It shows just what he is up against later on, like coming up later. It's very, very well written, and it's literally the scene why I'm not just completely taking a hammer to this movie.
And this Dormammu definitely looks a lot better than the 1978 one that looked very much like something you hope you never find in your mother's nightstand.
But it was good. Again, I was one of those. I was just like you. I was like, they won't do this. They won't do this. There's no. Oh, they're actually doing it. Wow. Surprise.
Yeah. And also, they didn't fall into the first movie trap that's always so simple. I mean, even what the Doctor Strange animated movie did, you expect lesser filmmakers to destroy Dormammu at the end of this movie. But he doesn't destroy him. I mean, they've still got him in their pocket to use anytime they need to in the future. He just agreed to take his zealots and leave. He didn't get sucked into the Eye of Agamotto like he did in the animated series. I don't even know what happened to him in the Peter Hooton series, but I know Morgan Le Fay made it out alive. But
no one can tell you what happened at the end of that movie.
Yeah. But I like it, man. I think this was a nice way to deal with bringing the very famous big bad into the first picture. They reach an agreement. He doesn't necessarily destroy him. You could say he doesn't even really defeat him. He just gets he annoys him to the point that he's willing to leave Earth alone if Doctor Strange will just promise never to call him again.
He barely makes it out is the way to describe it. It's perfect.
And then he goes back, goes back to Hong Kong. And I was kind of surprised that Mordo was not a villain through this whole movie. But at the end, he says, you know what? No, thanks. I'm leaving. I just can't handle, the Ancient One lied to us. Now you're messing with the time stream, which they told us you can never do. Mordo decides to be a bad guy because he's so rigid in his belief in the laws that he's been taught and the rules that he's been taught. Very different from the Mordo who becomes a bad guy for his own personal gain in the comics and in the previous adaptation that we talked about.
And now Strange is giving us something that the Marvel Universe has so little of, which is awesome bad guys. Because your Mordo is more of like a Magneto-style villain, which he's not in the comic books. I think that this is a nice turn for that character. And 2, Dormammu he is a giant celestial bad. Like that is so great. And there's so few of them in the Marvel Universe.
And I'm going to go ahead and say it now. He could potentially be used as a god from the machine to defeat Thanos if need be.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and they have to strike yet another bargain with him to make it work. And then later on down the line, that those chickens will come home to roost. It's a really good idea.
I thought he should have just been a big giant cloud.
And I
Fantastic Four. I'm looking at you.
For the Galactus fans out there,
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I'm just glad they didn't grab a Hoover and put some bumps on it and call it Dormammu. But for the non-comic book aware, I know that my wife hated the name Dormammu. She said it sounded like whenever they needed to come up with a name, someone had a mouthful of cookies and tried to say a cool name, and Dormammu is what came out. Kind of like the old Got Milk commercial with I remember. Sounds like Dormammu a little bit.
Directed by Michael Bay, that commercial.
Good on you, Mr. Bay.
Yeah.
But now I also thought, man, this is too obvious, I think. I thought they're not going to do this, but then Wong gives us the obligatory reveal that the Eye of Agamotto is an Infinity Stone. Like, there's no question left in it. I mean, he just calls it out as being an Infinity Stone.
Yeah, by the way.
Well, it's gotta be. It's the one that messes with time. And
the Time Stone, yeah.
And the Time Stone, it has been absent until this movie.
And now we have all 5 stones. You know, there are 6 stones in the comics, but there are only going to be 5 stones in this movie universe. So this is our 5th stone.
I did not know that.
Are you sure?
Yeah, because we've got the Tesseract, which was the first stone. We've got the thing that's in Vision's forehead that used to be in Loki's scepter is the Soul Gem, maybe? I can't remember which stone is which. Now, we've got the Ether that was in Thor the Dark World. We've got the Orb that was in Guardians of the Galaxy. And now we have number 5, the Eye of Agamotto, and there will not be a 6th stone, as far as I understand, in the cinematic universe.
Oh.
Because, you know, when you look at the actual 6 stones in the Infinity Gauntlet stories, they do kind of get to be redundant. Like, too many of them kind of say the same thing. You have the Energy Stone and the Power Stone. I think it's a good choice to shave off one of those stones.
Well, don't you think there's going to be like there's probably going to be a 6th stone, which is Adam Warlock, probably?
That could happen. But I think they gave Vision a stone, so they didn't have to give it to Adam Warlock. Maybe they weren't convinced Warlock was going to play that big of a role. I don't know.
The Heart Stone.
Yes, it helps you find true love on Tinder.
Oh, man, I've played both Hearthstone and Power Stone. Great games. Different eras,
I like
of
Hearthstone
course.
much better.
Oh, come on. Power Stone back in the day, man. I was in college when that came out. It was dope.
I'm a big fan of Sly and the Family myself. But anyway.
Yeah, well. I won't argue with you there.
We get our mid-credit scene with Thor, and my kids, my sons in particular, big fans of the Ghostbusters movie that came out this summer. So when Thor shows up, they go, "Hey, Kevin is in a Marvel movie." So I kind of got a little chuckle out of that.
I thought you were going to say I leaned over and smacked him and just go, "You know what's right." That is the God of Thunder.
And I like it, man. This is one of the better mid-credit scenes I've seen. I mean, it really kind of clarifies to me what I can expect in Thor Ragnarok. We know that Loki and Thor are in New York, and Doctor Strange is going to team up with him to try to find Odin, and that's going to cause Ragnarok to happen.
I got to say, I was blindsided by this one, man. I just did not know that this would be a thing, and I was pleasantly surprised.
Were you hoping it would be Baby Groot showing up in the mid-credit scene?
Just as a plant in his office?
That would have been great. But then the more interesting one is what happens at the end when Mordo shows up again. And we got to wait till the very, very, very end. I mean, literally, they've already said, don't drive and text because of the scene in the movie where essentially that's what Doctor Strange is doing when he crashes. And then up pops Benjamin Bratt, the ex-Mr. Robinson or whatever you want to call him. Roberts, not Robinson. But and in comes Mordo to say the world has too many sorcerers. And I started to think there's this character that recently showed up in Luke Cage and in Power Man and Iron Fist, the current ongoing at Marvel. And I don't know if this character's ever been around before, but he's called Signor Magico. And he's like a street sorcerer that doesn't quite like Doctor Strange because Doctor Strange looks down on him, but he helps out Luke Cage and Danny Rand in one of the mysteries that they're working on. And I thought, man, if they would have just kept this guy around for another movie, we might have had a live-action Signor Magico.
I will give you $500, Marvel, if you actually make his title Signor Magico. $500. And I don't have that to give you, but I will conjure up, speaking of doctors, I will conjure up $500 to give you. Make that happen just because that name is just unbelievable.
And it wasn't.
Don't you think though that Benjamin Bratt is going to play a much bigger role in in the future here?
He has to. I mean, because that's what, like I said, I was so shocked when it just seemed like this ancillary character was played by Benjamin Bratt. I'm just like, you don't get that big of a name to have him just come in and play, guy number 6 who went to Nepal,
Yeah.
And so,
guy number 6 that went to Nepal. That's a good title for him. But maybe he will be Senor Magico. Maybe he'll show up on the Netflix TV stuff.
It's El Senor Magico.
Yeah, it'd be kind of cool if he showed up in Defenders as Senor Magico.
I'll take that. Look, man, he's a good enough actor usually, so.
And also this idea that Mordo wants to get rid of all the sorcerers in the world. It wasn't Baron Mordo that was doing it, but they had a pretty cool Death of Magic storyline in Marvel that Jason Aaron, I think, was the writer on that just happened in the past year or so. So kind of cool to see. That's an interesting way to go with Doctor Strange #2 that we'll get in a couple of years.
And here's the thing, man. These things are really the books and movies and stuff are really starting to get kind of a synergy together with how they're kind of doing stuff, and the certain villains getting their own books and stuff like that. I mean, due to Daredevil, the series itself, Kingpin's going to get his own solo title, for heaven's sake. So a lot of that stuff, a lot of interesting things going down that are really kind of going back and forth between books and movies and everything. But I like that, and I loved how at the end we got, very a la James Bond, Doctor Strange will return.
Yeah. Very cool.
All right. Now, before we get down to the proper rating of this and everything, we have to ask ourselves a question we ask ourselves every single episode of Here Movie Podcast. And it's something that you're going to find nowhere else, new listeners. We got to ask ourselves, how does this movie relate to our good friend, Sylvester Stallone?
Well, thank you very much, Adam. I happen to have a prepared statement.
Oh, huh.
Scott Adkins is the man you call when you want to make a sequel to a Steven Seagal movie, but you don't want to pay Steven Seagal prices. Black Mask 2, City of Masks, Undisputed 2, Universal Soldier, Day of Reckoning, Jarhead 3, Hard Target 2. There's nothing Scott Adkins can't come into the tail end of, sort of like a butt-kicking movie version of Ted McGinley. Don't know who Ted McGinley is? That's your problem, not mine. Scott Adkins is a British fella who knows martial arts, and he got his start working in Hong Kong. So chances are, if you watch some of those late 90s, early 2000 martial arts movies and thought to yourself, who's that weird white guy in the middle of this kung fu movie? That weird white guy was Scott Adkins. He would move on to bigger and better things like The Bourne Ultimatum and X-Men Origins Wolverine, where he played Weapon 13. But there's no greater thrill in every actor who pretends to kick people's life than when you get to perform all your kicking around Sylvester Stallone. And Scott Adkins would get his chance to kick around Frank Stallone's brother in Expendables 2. Keep on expendabling. Scott Adkins plays the part of Hector. And finally, Scott would get the chance to work with the very people whose jobs he took for so many years. I like to smack the Expendables franchise around because, let's face it, it's kind of what I do. But there's something cool about it also, and specifically with Expendables 2, because there's things like Chuck Norris came out of retirement to work on it. They also built a working train bridge in Bulgaria for that movie, and Bulgarians still use it as an actual train bridge today. The body count of Expendables 2 is 482, which is very impressive when you do the math on a movie that's roughly 2 hours long. Now, I didn't do the math because I'm not a numbers cruncher, but you get the idea. You know what I'm going for. Scott Adkins can still be seen in the Undisputed franchise because another one is coming out. And if you're one of the people that's looking forward to it, I imagine you're either in the Adkins family or maybe you're some weird subculture of dudes that breaks down Undisputed the way that most nerds break down the Star Wars. Man, that would be awesome. Like if there was a podcast called Undisputed Minute and there's countless Undisputed videos on YouTube explaining Undisputed. What a great idea. But as is my way, I'm getting off course and losing sight of the reason for this segment of the show. Scott Adkins is this week's Stallone connection. and HMPers, I would like someone to do a breakdown of the Undisputed movie series. Not me, of course, but I would totally listen to it. Now, Peter Hooton and Benedict Cumberbatch, let's review this movie so we can all get a smattering of hate mail this week.
All right. Well, for those of you, again, that are new to the Hero Movie Podcast, we don't have stars. We don't have letters. We've got our own arbitrary, silly system. It's called the Robin rating system. It goes all the way up from Dick Grayson at the top of the top to the bottom of the barrel of Jason Todd and everywhere in between. And if you want to find out the whole breakdown of that, head on over to Facebook.com/Hero Movie Podcast. It's the banner right there at the top of the screen. And hey, while you're there, why don't you throw a thumbs up on that bad boy and, follow all the good stuff that we do, man, because we got a lot of things coming down the feed there. So we appreciate that. So let's go ahead and do it. Bruce, where does the new Doctor Strange movie fall on the HMP official Robin rating system for you, sir?
Well, first off, it had very cool visuals. And my wife said that it's her favorite movie of the year this year. And she's an artist, so she really likes the visual side to it. And she just was into the visuals a whole lot. I think the story is probably on par with Ant-Man. You know, it's not the strongest movie they've had, but it's definitely not a bad story. The humor did fall just a little bit flat for me at times. But it was cool to see some actual doctor stuff in a Marvel movie, the operating room stuff and some of the medical back and forth. Even if it did cause me to guffaw a few times in the theater, I still liked it. I think it was solid fun. And most importantly, it feels fresh in this, what's become, I think you said 14 movies deep now, Adam.
I believe so.
It still feels fresh in this very deep Marvel universe that at times I worry is getting a little bit too formulaic. So I'm going to give it a Tim Drake.
Very good. Keenan, what you got for us?
Everything Bruce just said, I agree with all of that stuff. I will say that I saw this movie with my girlfriend, who's also her own person. But when she saw this movie, she really likes this movie. She likes this movie more than I did, actually. And I liked it. I mean, it's okay. It's an okay movie. I cannot give it a Tim Drake, though. I like it. I don't. I don't know how many more times I'm going to watch this movie. Maybe a couple years from now I'll see it again, but definitely not in recent history will I see this movie. So I've got to give it a Damian Wayne this week.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to echo a lot of sentiments. I think this movie is really, really good. I enjoyed quite a bit of it. I actually found the funny more than you did, Bruce. I had a lot of fun laughing at this thing, man. And again, it's just something that Marvel just knows how to do, is be able to really, give you the action, give you the suspense and the drama and everything, but still be able to sit back and go, hey, let's laugh at some stuff. And this thing is chock-a-block full with some laughs, man. And I got to say, the majority of them hit for me. And, I mean, just from even, him messing around with the collar or the cape and everything, I don't know why. It's just I'm an idiot, and I like funny, silly, stupid stuff. And this movie had enough for me. Really enjoyed the 3D. Super liked it a lot. I still do want to go see it again, but in the IMAX, because there's a couple things that are like kind of full-frame IMAX and stuff. So I'll probably do that within this next week or so. So with that in mind, because I think I want one more time to really cement, and of course, as people that listen to this show know, at the end of the year, we can go back and re-review any of the movies that we've reviewed over the past year and change our grade if need be. But as it stands now, it may go higher, it may stay the same. I doubt it'll go lower, but it'll at least stay at this point, and I'm going to say it's a very high Tim Drake for me. I had a really fun time watching this thing, and I think you guys are right. A lot of people who are that I'm kind of seeing on the internet and stuff who are not, Doctor Strange fans, or, even who I would consider big time, Marvel people, they may see the movies or something, but, that ain't going to guarantee that they like Doctor Strange by any stretch of the imagination. But they're really digging on it, man, and I think that's a powerful thing that Marvel can do, is bring in what's normally considered by most mainstream people as a C or D-list character like Doctor Strange, which obviously we don't think that, but some people do, and really bring him up to the level where people who have no familiarity with him at all are really digging on the movie. And I think that speaks to what Marvel is doing and the writer and directors and everything, and I got to applaud him on it, man. So very strong Tim Drake from me. All right. We haven't even talked what we're doing next week yet. So, but because we've all been busy with things. But believe you me, we're going to have something good next week. And you can do that, just follow us, man. If you're on Stitcher, iTunes, whatever, subscribe to us. We get a lot of love over on the iTunes, as you heard at the top of the show and everything. So if you're, so inclined, why don't you go down and give us a 5-star review? We'd really appreciate that. It helps this show get out and reach other people that love this kind of nerdy stuff just like you. And of course, be a patron, patreon.com/HMP, and get yourself bonus episodes, all kinds of good stuff. So until next week, Bruce, where can we find more of your work on the internet, sir?
Well, Heroes and Villains just released a good episode on Howard the Duck. Chubby Wizard should have another episode up probably the day after this one comes out, where we're kind of running down, getting caught up on Arrow, Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Gotham, Supergirl. So people might want to check that out.
Other than that, you've been doing nothing.
Yeah, and I just want to say that I'm proud that I made it all the way through this podcast without pointing out that the actor who played Wong was actually named Wong.
You're a big man for that, and we appreciate it. Sean?
You can reach me at Hero Movie Sean on Twitter. And also I do a podcast about the TV show Preacher. Check that out with a bunch of just massive tools. But I'm on it, so I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, so check out Preacher Podcast everywhere you go as well. And so like I said, follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hero Movie Podcast. We're on Instagram and Snapchat and all this other crap is Hero Movie Pod. So check that out on the tweets and all that kind of good stuff. And, look up Hero Movie Podcast on YouTube and everything, man. We're putting up new videos, at least 1 or 2 a week. I'm trying to do some new stuff. I reviewed the Luke Cage vinyl that just came out and everything. I got a Stan soapbox coming up and not too awful long. So doing a lot of cool stuff on YouTube. Our subscribers are starting to go up. So we really appreciate that and everything. And the Film Find should be coming back fairly soon here. I've been having with the whole trying to get a new job thing, and it's all been kind of a big of a wash. But we got some stuff percolating over there and everything and stuff. So, again, really appreciate you guys taking the time, listening to the show and everything. And we are really thrilled that, we can do it, all these episodes and everything. And it's because of guys and gals like you. So thank you guys so much. That is it, everybody. Until next week, for Sean Keenan, Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Portrais. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie.